Football is no longer just about goals, trophies, and derby drama. At the very top, it becomes global business, cultural power, billion-euro branding, and stadiums that feel like financial empires. But here is what makes this ranking so interesting. Every giant became rich in a different way. Some built it through history. Others built it through modern football's new machine. At number 10 is Chelsea with 584.1 million euros. That number tells you two stories at once. First, this is still one of the biggest names in world football. Second, even a club with major European pedigree, London prestige, and massive transfer headlines can only start this list from 10th. Chelsea's power comes from brand recognition, a huge global audience, and the kind of spotlight that almost never leaves the club, whether results are good or bad. What makes Chelsea interesting is the contrast. They often feel louder than clubs above them because of their spending, their managers, and the pressure around every season. But revenue is not just noise. It is structure, matchday strength, commercial weight, and long-term consistency. That is why Chelsea opened the ranking instead of climbing higher. Still, crossing the half-billion mark keeps them firmly among football's financial aristocracy, and it sets the tone for how serious the next 9 clubs really are. Chelsea bring global attention and elite status. But the next club proves that modern infrastructure can turn financial power into something even bigger. At number 9 is Tottenham Hotspur with 672.6 million euros. And this is where the ranking starts to get really fascinating. Tottenham do not carry the same trophy aura as some of the clubs below and above them. But financially, they have built one of the smartest modern models in football. Their stadium is a major reason why. It is not just a place for matches. It is a money-making engine, a statement of ambition, and one of the clearest examples of how football wealth now comes from experience as much as tradition. That is what makes Spurs such a powerful contrast to Chelsea. Chelsea may feel bigger emotionally to many fans because of recent silverware and historic nights, but Tottenham generate far more revenue here, by nearly 90 million euros. That gap is not small. It shows how much the business side of football matters now. Tottenham sit in a unique lane, less decorated than some giants, but financially sharper than many of them. And from this point on, the numbers rise fast, because the next names combine money with even heavier global history. Tottenham show what a modern club can become. But the next team reminds everyone that pure brand power can survive almost any storm. At number 8 is Manchester United with 793.1 million euros. Few clubs in football can match their commercial gravity. Even in seasons when the football itself falls below elite standards, United still move like a giant business empire. That is the power of decades of success, global fan loyalty, and a brand that became bigger than the pitch. Shirts, sponsorships, worldwide recognition, and non-stop media attention keep United near the top of football's financial world, even when the results do not fully match the size of the name. And that is why United are such a dangerous comparison point in this ranking. Tottenham built their way here through modern efficiency. United built it through legacy that still sells everywhere. They sit more than 120 million euros above Spurs, which shows just how strong that global pull remains. But there is also a ceiling in this position. The next clubs pair massive brands with sharper modern momentum, stronger sporting direction, or both. So even a commercial monster like United can only go so far before the top tier starts to separate itself. United still print attention like almost nobody else. But the next club has turned modern growth and football momentum into even bigger revenue. At number 7 is Arsenal with 821.7 million euros. This position feels like the reward for a club that has successfully reactivated its size. Arsenal were always huge in history, support, and identity, but revenue at this level needs more than old memories. It needs fresh relevance. And that is exactly what Arsenal have rebuilt. A team people want to watch, a club brands want to attach themselves to, and a football project that once again feels connected to the elite level of Europe. What makes Arsenal's place even more impressive is how tight the race has become. They are only 28.6 million euros ahead of Manchester United, which tells you these clubs are operating in the same financial universe, just with different energy. United still lean heavily on old commercial muscle. Arsenal right now feel driven by renewed momentum, Champions League visibility, and one of the strongest fan atmospheres in the game. That mix pushes them just above a giant rival. But the next spot shows what happens when modern success becomes relentless and the machine gets even stronger. Arsenal climbed back into the financial elite through revival. The next club did it through sustained dominance and a football machine built to win almost every year. At number 6 is Manchester City with €829.3 million. This is one of the clearest examples of modern football wealth at full power. City's rise has been built on elite performance, deep investment, global branding, and the kind of sporting consistency that turns success into a business habit. They are not just a rich club, they are a fully optimized football operation. When a team keeps winning major trophies, keeps attracting worldwide attention, and keeps expanding its commercial footprint, the revenue starts to look inevitable. But what makes this part of the ranking so dramatic is how small the gap really is. City are only €7.6 million above Arsenal. That is almost nothing at this level. It shows that even dominant modern success does not automatically create huge separation if the clubs around you are also massive. City feel like the symbol of football's new era, yet they still have to fight for every place in this top 6. And the club ahead proves that heritage, atmosphere, and elite results together can still edge out the perfect machine. City look like the future of football money. But the next club shows that history and emotion still have enormous financial weight. At number 5 is Liverpool with €836.1 million. Liverpool are a perfect example of how football wealth can feel emotional as well as commercial. This is a club with enormous global support, unmistakable identity, and a stadium atmosphere that amplifies the brand every time the cameras roll. Anfield is not just a home ground, it is part of the product. Add major success in recent years, iconic European nights, and a fan culture that travels across the world, and Liverpool become one of the strongest football businesses on the planet. The comparison with Manchester City is what really sharpens this ranking. City are the cleaner symbol of modern sporting efficiency. Liverpool, by contrast, monetize history, passion, and prestige at an extraordinary level. And they sit only €6.8 million higher, which tells you how thin the margins now are. At this stage, nobody is simply rich. These clubs are fighting over tiny gaps inside the financial penthouse of world football. And yet the next team is ahead by less than 1 million, which is where this ranking becomes almost absurdly tight. Liverpool proved that emotion can be monetized at the highest level. But the next club mixes football with fashion, glamour, and one of the most marketable cities in the world. At number 4 is Paris Saint-Germain, with €837 million. The most striking part is the gap. They are only €0.9 million ahead of Liverpool. Financially, that is almost a photo finish. PSG represent a very different type of football giant. Their rise is tied to glamour, celebrity, luxury branding, and the commercial power of Paris itself. This is a club that has positioned itself not just in football culture, but in fashion culture, global lifestyle culture, and the premium image economy that surrounds modern sport. That makes PSG one of the most unique clubs on this list. They do not lean on century-old European dominance in the same way some others do. Instead, they built scale through visibility, star power, and branding that reaches beyond the traditional football space. That strategy pushed them into the top 4, but it also shows the limits of image alone. Because the next 3 clubs bring not just huge money and huge brands, but even heavier football weight behind them. And once you hit that level, the ranking changes from rich to truly historic. PSG mastered image and marketability. The next club shows the power of something colder, steadier, and brutally efficient, long-term excellence. At number 3 is Bayern Munich with €860.6 million. Bayern do not need chaos, glamour, or constant drama to sit near the top. Their power comes from something even more dangerous: consistency. Season after season, they remain relevant, competitive, visible, and commercially strong. Bayern are the blueprint for a stable football superpower. Huge domestic dominance, regular deep European presence, a loyal supporter base, and one of the most respected club identities in the sport combine to create a revenue model that feels incredibly hard to shake. What separates Bayern from clubs just below them is the balance. PSG may feel flashier, Liverpool may feel more emotional, but Bayern are built like a premium institution. That gives them a €23.6 million edge over PSG and a place in the top three. This is not the loudest football giant. It is one of the most complete. Still, even Bayern sit more than €114 million behind the next club, which tells you the final two are operating on an even bigger scale. And that is where global football turns truly enormous. Bayern look like the perfect football institution. But the next club brings a scale of identity and worldwide pull that very few teams can touch. At number 2 is Barcelona with €974.8 million. Even after years of financial turbulence and intense pressure, Barcelona remain one of the biggest revenue forces in football. That alone tells you how powerful the club's identity really is. This is more than a team. It is a worldwide symbol, a football philosophy, an academy myth, a shirt recognized in every corner of the sport, and a cultural idea that has traveled far beyond Spain. When a club becomes that iconic, commercial gravity keeps pulling money toward it. Barcelona sit more than €114 million above Bayern, which is a huge jump after the tighter gaps below. That leap shows the difference between being a giant club and being one of football's absolute superbrands. But the most telling number is still the one above them. Because even with all their global reach, history, and emotional power, Barcelona are still €186.2 million behind first place. That gap is massive. It means the number one club is not just leading this ranking, it is leading from another floor of the building entirely. Barcelona are almost at the billion mark and still nowhere near the top. That tells you just how enormous the final club really is. At number 1 is Real Madrid with €1,161 million. This is not just first place. This is financial separation at the highest level. Real Madrid are the only club in this ranking above the billion euro line, and they clear second place by €186.2 million. That is the kind of lead that changes the feel of the entire list. Real Madrid are not simply another rich giant. They operate like football royalty with a commercial reach, sporting reputation, and global recognition that very few brands in any sport can match. What makes Real Madrid so difficult to catch is that every major pillar is strong at the same time. History, prestige, big match aura, worldwide fan pull, star power, trophy culture, iconic white shirt imagery. The club sells success before a ball is even kicked. That is the dream position in modern football, when legacy itself becomes a revenue engine. Other clubs may have stronger momentum in one era or another, but Real Madrid combine the old world and the new world better than anyone. And that is why they do not just top this ranking, they define it. So that is the top 10. And the biggest takeaway is simple. Football wealth is no longer built in one way. History, branding, stadiums, trophies, identity, and global reach all matter. But at the very top, only a few clubs turn all of it into true financial empire status. Drop a like if this ranking surprised you, subscribe for more football top videos, and tell me in the comments which club should be higher, or which team could break into this top 10 next.